Hello, how are you
Hi,
today, Ashley?
I'm good. How are you?
It's kind of one of those dreary, overcast, misty days, so it feels kind of like a long sleeve shirt day. You look at you, you're in, what is it? What's going on in your territory? It must be hot.
It's like 85 or 90, so we're finally hitting winter here in
Yes, cooling
Arizona.
down for you.
Yeah,
Well, we were
so
talking about last time, this idea of what how to find your tribe and how what this whole idea is, how we're starting to activate each other and move into higher dimensions. And then afterwards we both thought about it. We thought, I wonder if our listeners might be interested in this idea. What is the difference between third dimension, fourth dimension, fifth dimension? Because the idea of ascension is that you're lifting your body, your physical form, your emotional and mental bodies into higher frequencies. So yeah, so today we're talking about what is 3D, 4D, 5D, and how do we know? Like that's another thing too, is how do we know which level we're vibrating at? So give me your thoughts. Where would you like to start?
well, this just all kind of seems like abstract concepts until 2020 hit, right? And then you could clearly see what was happening. And so it was really just a moment of, oh, okay, this is all of the stuff we've been talking about, but now we can actually see it happening. So when they explain the 3D versus 5D, I know like a lot of woo woo people talk about that. And it really just feels like a frequency thing. So, because we are in these bodies and we're in this density, we're on this earth plane experiencing the 3D. So, everything that first becomes energy comes down into the physical. So, everything is 3D. The 3D is very real. But it's not all what meets the eye, right? So then there is the 5D, and people keep talking about, well, there's a 3D, 5D split going on, and it can be very confusing to understand. Um, so the fast track version of that is all about how you feel and your emotions and your choice points throughout the day.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
um, the 4D, you and I were kind of talking about this, feels like a train station where there's a lot of stuff going on all at once. So, any thoughts or emotions or feelings that you have throughout the day, those are all coming at you at the 4D. And then you have a choice. So, if someone does something to you and it makes you feel horrible, you can choose, how am I going to respond to this? And then that's where the frequency alignment happens. So if someone does something to me that upsets me, and I can pause and not react, and then choose the frequency of which I want to respond. And I remember you listened to Elizabeth April, right?
Yes.
Okay. So she talked a lot about how 2021 was a hinge year. And I always felt that resonated with me, in that any choice that you make, as long as you're basing it through love of self, through love of others, whatever it is, the love frequency, you cannot go wrong in that decision. And I really feel that on a deep level. And to me, that is the 5D frequency. So, because we're in these 3D bodies, we can oscillate through all the frequencies. And there are way more beyond
Beyond the
that.
five.
Just
Yes.
the that's just the tip of heaven on earth, I believe. So we can choose um all the time. So sometimes I have really bad reactions to things, and then I go, oh my God, I feel like I knew better. Why did I do that? But we're all learning, and it's self-mastery. I believe all of us
It
on the
is.
planet right now are on a self-mastery path,
Yes.
and
We're
we all have.
flowing. And the thing too that's interesting, and I think people need to understand, it's not kind of like you're in three and then you're in fourth and then you're in fifth. We are
Right.
multidimensional. So we're flowing into fourth and fifth. And now we're, like you say, with self-mastery, we are learning how those choice points are. But I wanted to add a couple things about 3D.
Yeah.
So because of my profession, I tend to flow into 3D and be in there, because that's where I'm meeting people at, right? And I'm meeting them in 3D, I'm bridging them, right, through the fourth dimension. And not many, but some are typically they don't see me as often once they start moving into the fifth. But that 3D form is one in which we're vibrating at such a slow vibrational rate, a low frequency. And so that is how, like the density, and that's what we all agree to coming into this planet. And I just want to touch on that piece. We came in, we all agreed as souls to come to this dimensional plane to learn and to experience. And by doing so, there is no wrong or right, because it is just simply the experience and then the choices that we make. And we might have a template that we've developed in order to what we want to achieve in our goals, our personal goal or collective goal. But we're here to actually experience all that. And that is what we send back to source. That is part of the source's way of knowing what it is not. So 3D is actually, it's not a bad thing to be in third dimension. It's not like you are in kindergarten. It is an experiential planet in which very evolved souls can come to learn at.
Yeah.
So I think that that's kind of nice to know.
Yeah, like we chose this experience, so there's nothing wrong with 3D. We are all 3D, but then we have the choice points of how we want to show up in our 3D. And that's where it comes in, where everyone's talking about 3D versus 4D versus 5D. They're choice points of where you want your frequency to be. And it changes all of the time. But if you can keep focusing on maybe some higher emotion, higher responses to things, and I guess we could get into that too, then your set point changes, right? So then I'm making my decisions are now here versus down here. And then in turn, you just start feeling better. And then the things that are going on in the 3D that are maybe hard to look at or uncomfortable, you kind of like detach from that a little bit, because it's just not as important. The 3D becomes less important.
Yeah. And, another thing too, is that this third dimensional process that we move, right? We're moving and higher frequencies and, like you say, decision making. And that we talked last week about our tribe. One of the benefits of connecting to a tribe member who is moving like you are, right? And moving up to higher choice points, higher ways of seeing and understanding, is that you say you have a 3D problem. Your partner pisses you off, you have a fight with a family member, something happens maybe at work. If you talk about it on a 3D level, you just kind of go round and round, making up the story and the narrative about who's wrong, who's right, and all of that, because that's duality. But if you're connected with somebody, and this, I thought of us, like if I talk to you and I have a 3D problem, often what happens is your tribe friend, I guess I should say, will have a perspective, a higher perspective, and that's just enough often to pop us out. So that set point is an area that we can pop back to, even though we may dive in, and that's where having like-minded souls around you really makes a difference. If you've got a lot of people who are locked into a lower frequency thought frequency, right? Our thoughts. Then what happens if you have a problem and you go to them with it, or you talk about it, they're going to be able to only give you feedback from that level of frequency. And so you may find, by the way, if you're starting to move into higher frequencies, that you just don't feel good after those conversations. You might walk away going, that didn't feel right. And so typically somebody who's vibrating higher is seeing it from a higher perspective.
Yeah.
And that's helpful,
Yeah. And to your point, like I need visuals. They really help me throughout my day. So I was thinking one day about the triangle, and how at the bottom of the triangle you have the polarity, the light, the dark, the good, the bad, the, you know, the opposites. That's the 3D. When you take a perspective and decide to be the top of the triangle, you're just choosing the higher perspective, the higher feeling, and then the rest kind of dissolves. Like, and at the top of the triangle, that's where I am learning all of the things of humility, compassion, grace, mercy, all, love, unconditional love. And I screw it up all of the time, you know, but if we have that, like you said, where you take that pause and then can see the bigger picture of something. And then if I visualize the triangle and think, okay, do I want to be playing in this? I can play in this. Do I want to, or am I done with it? Do I want to see the higher? Because the higher is where the peace is, and it's where all kind of the stories all dissolve. And then you feel
Yeah.
it. You feel it inside, and then you go, oh, I can breathe. This is okay, you know. And it kind of just dissolves everything.
And that's really
So
the key when you start to move out of the third into the fourth dimensional thought system, right? Because we have the four subtle bodies. We have the physical form. And the physical form, just a side note, but I don't know if we'll get into this today, but the physical form is going to transition into a fourth, fifth dimensional physical form. And that's very unique because typically in the fifth dimensional frequency, there is no physical form necessarily. And so there is something that's happening to us physically that's going to transition. But then you also have the thought system, the emotional and mental bodies, and you have the spiritual body or the quantum, whatever you want to call it. But when you arrive at the fourth dimensional thought system, you had said it earlier, there is an ability to observe self. And that is, I think it's a critical leap in consciousness. I believe that one of the biggest pieces that humanity can do is to be able to stop and then notice and see ourselves and know that we're thinking a thought or that we're feeling a feeling. And that in itself allows you to then make that choice. And most of us, if we're stuck in the 3D realm, we're just reactive to whatever happens. And the story, because we don't understand, from again that fourth dimensional perspective, we're seeing what's happening and having a sense of what's happening, but in the third dimension we don't understand, and so we always create stories, and we always have either blame ourselves or blame others. That's our typical go-to. I can say I was a blame others, and I was very good at it. So you know, this is just kind of part of the way you know. How do I know I'm in the fourth dimensional frequency? One of them is that I am actually able to observe that I am feeling frustrated or uncomfortable or embarrassed or angry. And in that moment, like you said, I can choose to react, or I can choose to notice it and let myself realize that it's a story and not actually true. Like if I think maybe I'm embarrassed and I made up a story about me, I can say, well, actually, that's something that everybody would do. And, you know, and that allows us then to move forward, right? We don't get locked into this.
right, because the 4D, that's for all of the stories, that's for all of the thoughts, that's for all of it's the collective mind is all right there, along with who knows what else. That's another topic, right? Of there's so much in the 4D. So if you're grabbing a feeling like I feel, you know, like if I'm eating a candy bar or something and I think I'm going to get fat from this candy bar, then I'm like, whoa, was that my thought or was that somebody else's thought? Right? Because when you break it down, and then I think, that's not my thought. I'm not going to get fat from eating this candy bar. Like, that's ridiculous. I'm eating it because I enjoy it. Boom, done. But these thoughts can come in and we can take them on as our own. So even if we feel like, I feel like I've done so much work around this topic, why is it coming back? Well, maybe it's not even mine. Maybe I'm just in the 4D stew and picking it up, and then that's where the discernment is so important. And then going back to the triangle of, do I want to play in duality? Do I really care what my neighbors are doing with their health status versus my own? Do I really care about what this person thinks is right for them? No, I really don't. I just want everyone to feel free and be happy. And then that's the top of the triangle where everything kind of just,
Mhm.
it dissolves. Like it just doesn't matter like it did.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then that's the bridge. The fourth dimension is the bridge, right? Okay, so your awareness, you can see self, you can understand what's going on emotionally, mentally in that moment. Now that you bridge into more fifth dimensional frequencies, like it's really in that place of love, like you said, your compassion. One, you work through pretty much attachments. I would say that two things cannot move into that higher dimensional frequency. One is attachments, and that's attachment to anything, material, identity, all of that. Often that's why you'll see many of the avatars are very simple people, don't have a lot of possessions, because they're not attached to it, and so they don't really have a desire to have a lot. And the other one is judgment of others and judgment of self. Usually you work with self and that releases that of others. Your judgment of self, if you work on that first, then what happens is that shifts your perspective, and that's when you can see others as just really everybody is just another soul on their unique journey, but we're all one from source. And so we're all on these separate journeys, but we're all going back to source. And everything we do goes back to source. Source exists through us. So I think that that's really important. And to me, the fifth dimensional frequency is kind of like one of those, what more is there to learn about that? Because it's so exciting when I think about it. I've studied the Lemurians who are living on the fifth dimensional frequency. And a lot of the writings are saying that they are, ready to return back to the surface in order to assist humanity once the time comes to actually learn how to live. Because living in the fifth dimensional frequency is what they talked about heaven on earth. Really, heaven on earth is about the concept of anchoring in a fifth dimensional higher self into the third dimensional body. And then that would be walking on earth in form, right? In a physical form on a fifth dimensional frequency. And that was what the prophecies were, that we would have 2,000 years of peace and would be heaven on earth. And the reason that it can be heaven on earth is the kind of anger and hate and jealousy and rage and rape and murder, all of that cannot exist in the higher frequency. It is a low, dense, very dense vibration. And those people who are at higher frequencies right now, we can feel it. We can feel the density of people, and we can feel the density of a room and of this planet. And it actually is very exhausting. If you're an empath, and I definitely think there probably will be many empaths who are listening to this, that is what you're experiencing often, is if you're around people who are in this really, really low, dense vibration and they need to feed on you in a sense of your energy, you will feel exhausted because your energy, if you're not aware, you're not holding your field nice and clear. And we'll talk about this is probably another topic, Ashley, is about our own spiritual hygiene in order to be able to walk in this world. I think the higher you vibrate, the less you need to do that, because you're just rising above it. But in the beginning, when you're moving, you really need to be aware of your especially the more of an empath you are, the more that's important to do. I don't know, that's kind of another topic, but
Yeah, but you're right. And there's so much going on right now that people are seeing that you can stay in that frequency of that 4D or that super highway or that busy train station where you're going, oh my God, like, how is this happening? Or I can't believe I just saw that, or I can't believe I just saw this. And it's so busy, and it's important, I believe, to look at all of that and see it all. Like, I don't think we can look away, but then you have to make the conscious decision that I'm not going to stay living in that busy train station because it does not serve me. I can go there and look, but it's time to think about, like, why am I here? And are we here to continue the divide and continue the confusion and continue the suffering? Or are we here to help usher in the higher frequencies, which I believe has been going on for a long time? I think that's why Jesus was here. I grew up Catholic, and but I did not learn a lot about Jesus until like recently, as I'm getting older, and think, well, what was he really teaching, and who was he really about? And that's like a whole another topic. But he was just trying to bring in those higher frequencies to the earth, because we're in these physical 3D bodies. We are here to ground it in. So, you know, there's all kinds of light workers that, you know, that's like another topic, but, you know, of holding the line, of holding in the frequency. And when we are aware and we know what we're doing, then I believe we are more potent on this planet and can really, you know, can really cause change. So when people look how awful things look in the 3D,
Mhm.
and you think, what can I do? There's nothing for me to do. Like, I'm just one person. Or there's so much you can do just by focusing on your own feeling and focusing on the higher vibe feelings of love and compassion and grace. Because when you walk into a grocery store and you are embodying that, you are touching all the other people around you, all of their fields. So when you think you are doing nothing, it is simply not true. That is false, that we were led to believe that you have to be out doing and working and 9 to 5 and, you know, burning the midnight oil and all these things. That just keeps us in the lower loops of pain and suffering. And I don't think we are meant to live like that. I think we're meant to experience the heaven on earth. And there are people who are experiencing that. And I can hold it for a little, you know, it just depends on the day, right? Of what's going on in my
Yes.
world. Sometimes I can hold it and I'm like, oh my God, like, keep this going as long as possible, but I cannot hold it. It's like, you know, love and let go, love and let go. Like, okay, I know another moment will come in, we'll have that again. And then the more you get it, the more you get it. And
Yeah, I feel like my guides have been more interested in the process of discernment. So, because you know, there was a time when I felt like, oh, I should be here and I should stay here, you know, and so then I would have, you know, whatever would happen, and I would kind of go into my stuff, and I had this feeling like, you know, what's wrong? Why am I going back? And they seem to only be concerned. They don't see that as a problem. And I think it's because the nature of being here is to be playing on the 3D field. And so what they're more interested in is being able to come back to that center point, which is where truth resides. I always say here within our heart. And when we come back into this space, and that, so meditation, Kundalini yoga, nature, connecting to nature, getting your feet flat on the ground without any rubber soles on, these kind of things that bring you back into resonance with all there is. We have, as a society, we are so disconnected from the truth of who we are, and we're trying to find it outside of us. And so that's kind of like this whole thing that we go looping back and forth. But just know that the discernment process is what you're doing. And every time you're able to discern, and you talked about a set point earlier, that you start to stay more and more in that frequency. And when you do go back into a 3D situation, and maybe someone just pushes your buttons and you know, your old stuff comes up, and you might respond in a way that you realize later is not the way you would like to, but that when you're not judging yourself, it doesn't last long.
yeah,
Just come back to your center, and keep the love for self, and understanding that we are faced with something. And that's one thing that my guides also realizes, there's a lot of distortion on this level. There's a lot of There's a lot of other dimensional frequencies. We talk about the fourth dimensional frequencies. There's a lot of beings that reside in that frequency that are more for service to self, right? They're not for service to others. And so they came in and they're able to be in that frequency, influencing and interfering in ways. And so, you know, we're playing it. And then the more that we have this acceptance and flow, we're able to keep it anchored. Because as soon as we realize we did it and we come back and we have that complete acceptance of self, we're fine. We're back to it.
Yeah, and one tip that I really found that has helped me a lot with that. So when I know I'm being inundated, or I know I'm really in the 4D mix of things, and I need to get back to myself, or somebody, you know, I'm feeling too much with other people that I'm in contact with, or whatever. All I do, I got this from the Mary Magdalene Revealed book. I cannot think of the author's name, but it's a really
Is it Megan Watterson?
Yes. Okay. Did you read it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I know. How? Oh my God, we read the same
You
book.
read it. But do you remember? Maybe I know I screenshot this, but she just said you just pause and you take 3 breaths and you call all of your energy, or all of the fractals of you, or all of you back into your heart space. You call all of your consciousness back into your heart space. So it's really that simple. I call all of my consciousness back into my heart space, all parts of Ashley back here, and then I just breathe. Just breathe. And then you just feel that centered, you can feel the burning of fire in your heart. I know that sounds like an Elvis song or something, but it's true. You feel it. And then it's like, whatever it was, it just doesn't even matter anymore. It just doesn't even matter. Yeah.
It's that simple. And yet it can be so difficult. I do want to touch on the difficulty piece, since that's kind of what I do for my job. The difficulty in this concept of moving into the observer of self is that often many of us have our earliest years are from our family of origin trauma. And some of the trauma that we have in the now point is trauma that we have actually perpetuated. So we created a story around something that was happening and made it true. And then we went out and made it true in our life. For instance, if a little girl's mother is an alcoholic, and so she is at times abusive and critical, and at times loving. And so the little girl began to believe that when her mother wasn't available for her or was mean, that she wasn't lovable. Okay. And so she grew up in this experience. And then all of a sudden, she started to then create her reality through the belief that she's not lovable. And then she had confirming experiences. And she chose men who treated her poorly, which confirmed her belief she wasn't lovable. And so on it goes. Okay, so now that person has trauma in the field, in first of all, the mental field, because a belief system that is going on is a negative belief system, is limiting, is blocking. The emotions that come from feeling not lovable is shame and deep grief, incredible grief. And so you have an emotional and mental body, and if you lived enough years and you get into your 50s and 60s, you may now have physical illness from a belief system that is wrapped up in self-hate, probably an autoimmune issue. Yeah. Because autoimmune issues relate a lot to self-hate.
I have a lot of autoimmune.
Oh, we need to talk. So releasing anything that it might be a pattern of belief. Oh, and one thing, let me just finish that piece. Releasing patterns of belief and releasing emotions that have been trapped into your physical form assist people from then being able to move. And once you get enough of that cleared out, the person can then make that leap. That is that huge leap in consciousness. But one other thing I will add, sometimes somebody's done a ton of work. They're like, what more work? I've cleared all my childhood stuff. If they don't look at the past lives or the lineage, often many empaths, light workers, starseeds have come in to heal the lineage, have come in to heal all the past incarnations on this planet and other planets. So they come in with a heavy load. So often, if it's something that's very tough and moving, clearing those past lives, clearing that ancestral trauma is actually what, and you know, we're doing it for the collective. Whenever we're doing things on that level, we're doing that as a collective. And that will be what's needed too. And that's just certain people who the souls wanted to, you know, like, let me just add another level of what I can do for you guys. And usually they're a soul that says, you know, I'm a badass out in the heavenly realms, and
Just load it up, load it up.
just, yeah, we got it, you know. And typically it's like the PhD program in our Earth school. So that being said, there's stuff you can do, because it's not often as easy as what we're saying. You and I have done a lot of work, you know, and so that's one of the reasons that things started to stream in, and we started to be able to really, really connect to higher selves.
Yeah, I think it's just like we said, maybe to wrap it up, between the 3D, 4D, 5D, it's just acknowledging that this exists and having the awareness around it. And there's beyond 5D, there's below 3D, right? So just understanding though the basic of 3D, 4D, 5D, so that we can navigate what's going on right now, so that you don't suffer, because you don't have to suffer, you know. And you can choose for yourself higher. You can choose to be at the top of the triangle, which is what I work on all of the time. And then you can tell by your emotions and how you're feeling, you know. So some days are tricky and some days are like golden, and it's just the nature of where we are and what we're doing.
Yes. And the name of the game is lots of self-love. And that's really the first place that I think we all need to begin with, that self-love. And then as we begin to navigate the journey home, we are, you know, we're kind to ourselves.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a good way to kind of wrap it up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, next one, I think, you know, I would love to touch bases on what kind of things keeps us anchored into the 3D, you know. So these are just the everyday problems, but things like talking about children, not that children themselves do it, but our fear for our children can often anchor us. So there are many things that, so fear being one big one, but I'd love to talk about that, because kind of giving people a little bit more of a roundabout viewpoint of this topic.
Yeah. Yeah, sounds good. I love it. There's so many spin-offs to be had. I mean, this is like, I think this is why we're here. And maybe just if we say something that one person goes, oh, like a light bulb moment, let me think about that, then I think this is what this is really all about. Because like you said, we're all just walking each other home. My friend Nikki always says that, like, we're just walking each other home. And it's, you know, home is right here.
Yeah, yeah. So yes, and for anybody watching, we really love to hear any of your thoughts, and please, you know, post in the comments below. And if you'd like to know more about a particular subject, please let us know, because we're happy to fit that in.
Yeah.
Love you.
I love you too. All right. I'll
Okay.
talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.